Hey there everyone, it's me, elmoviemaster. So, welcome to the very first episode of ranking different movies, from worst to best, different franchises. This is a sample video, so what I mean is I'll see how this video does, if people enjoy it. This is going to be something that will be happening every Friday. Today, I'm going to be ranking the Children of the Corn franchise. Nobody asked me to do this. There's a lot of people who love the Friday the 13th, the Halloween movies, even Puppet Master and Leprechaun. But I don't meet that many fans of Children of the Corn. I can see why. The Children of the Corn movies. I'm laughing because this was torture. Seriously, this was hard to get through. I've had these movies in my collection for over 10 years. And I remember when I bought these, I was bored. I wanted to complete, my collection, have every single horror franchise known to mankind. And sometimes less is more. Again, I had never seen any of these, so I'm going to be ranking them from worst to best. Mind you, this is just an opinion. If you love these movies, all the power to you. I'm not trying to offend. This is just my opinion. So let's start with the worst one. Number 10 is Children of the Corn Runaway, released in 2018. Oh boy, this movie is only 82 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. Okay, this movie has very little to no plot. This is a sequel to the 2009 movie, Children of the Corn, which was made for the Sci-Fi Channel. One of the biggest sins a movie can do is be boring. You can be dumb, you can be nonsensical to a certain degree, but don't be boring. This movie is utterly boring. There's nothing in this movie that I can say, hey, that was pretty cool. Nothing. The story revolves around this character, who is one of the children who survive and escape the Children of the Corn. She's trying to start a new life in this small town. She should have gone to the city or somewhere else, but instead she comes to a town where there's people there who may or may not be associated with He Who Walks Behind the Rose.
He who walks behind the rose will decide your fate.
And if you're a little confused, He Who Walks Behind the Rose is this demonic creature who lives in the cornfield. There's plenty of gory kills, but they're whatever. Once they happen, you're cheering for them to die because they make stupid decisions, and it drags. There's nothing in between those deaths. Is just nonsense. Just scenes that drag out, and hallucinations. This character has a lot of hallucinations throughout the movie, and they lead to nothing. I hate movies that do that. It reminds me of this terrible movie called A Jar, where the main character just wakes up from a nightmare, and you thought it was real, but it was a dream, and it happens over and over and over again. And that's kind of how it is with her character. And it has one of the stupidest twists. You find out that the woman who she thought was helping her in the diner ends up being someone who praises He Who Walks Behind the Rose, has her killed by her own son. He becomes the new preacher of these, cultists. Really terrible movie. Really, really bad. This is probably the third worst movie I've ever seen in my life. I'm going to reserve the first two for another video because it's from another franchise. Don't bother. Number 9 is Children of the Corn, 2009. Jesus. This movie was made for the Sci-Fi Channel, and it shows. It's very low budget. And for the most part, it plays like the original movie that came out in the 80s. But the main characters are annoying. Never have I seen two characters that I wanted them to die so quickly. And spoiler alert, they both died, and I cheered. Boy, the two actors, the children in the movie, who are Malachi and Isaac, two of the worst child actors I've ever seen. Well, Malachi is played by an older kid. He's terrible too, but Isaac, you can tell that they force-fed his lines. It seems like they had an acting coach nearby, and they just tell him what to say really quickly, because it seems like he doesn't know what he's saying.
My name is Isaac, chosen by He Who Walks Behind the Rose, seer and prophet, guardian of the corn.
Can you shut the fuck up?
The movie tries to give you a little bit of a twist Apparently this is closer to Stephen King's book. It's no bueno. Not at all. Yeah, it's gory. But again, characters are annoying. It's boring. And I think this one's a little longer. 10 minutes longer. 92 minutes. And it also felt like 3 hours. I don't recommend this movie at all. Number 8 is Children of the Corn Genesis. So this movie, I'm not sure, but I don't think it's associated. It stands on its own. It's not a sequel to the original movies, and it's not associated with these two movies. Even though it came out in 2011, so it came out after this movie, but it has no connection to this one, and has no connection to this one, and no connection to any of the other ones. It stands on its own because they don't mention anything. And it has really nothing to do with the whole He Who Walks Behind the Rose. It's just a couple whose car breaks down, they find somewhere to stay, and there's a preacher. They just stay there while they're waiting for the tow truck. Wow, this one's also really boring. There's only one cool scene involving cars flying off on the street, and I'm laughing because they stole the scene. I'm pretty sure they stole it because I recognize the MacArthur Causeway. They stole this from Bad Boys. From Bad Boys 2. They took the scene where all the cars are, flying, and you have Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, dodging the cars. They reused it in this movie.
Oh my God, Tim, look out!
Oh my God!
I mean, I give him credit. The director is interviewed in behind the scenes, and he's so proud of using that particular shot. When you don't have a budget, you use what you can. So I don't want to be a complete, a-hole and say that it's poorly used. They tried. But the movie itself, nothing happens. There's really no children. There's only one child that you see at the end, and you find out that he's the one who's killing people. In particular, a cop who comes by and he makes him fly I don't know how many feet in the air, and then he falls to his death. And it also controls these two characters who are also very annoying and very dumb from leaving. And the only good thing is the actor, the main actor, Billy Drago, who I believe he passed away. He did a good job in the movie, but everyone else is really, the acting is really poor. And all of a sudden, towards the end of the movie, you see people coming to the town, and for most of the movie, you never saw anybody. So it's left also very ambiguous as to how it's associated with Children of the Corn. You see all this corn here. You don't really see corn in this movie. This scene does not happen in the movie. Really, really bad movie. I cannot recommend this one at all. Also is really hard to get through. Number 7 is Children of the Corn 666, Isaac's Return, which is included in this little DVD set, which I remember getting this from Walmart. At one point, Walmart had these movies, these Miramax classics. They had one for Hellraiser. They had one for, I believe, the Prophecy movies. This was back when Echo Bridge and what's the other company? Milk Creek were releasing a lot of horror movies in multi-packs. So anyway, Children of the Corn 666 brings the return of the character of Isaac that you saw in the original movie. If you've never seen the original movie, Isaac is supposed to be the preacher who gets all these visions of He Who Walks Behind the Rose, and he's the chosen one to interpret their version of like the Bible or some shit, and involves, a demon in living in the cornfield. And these kids are being manipulated to follow this ridiculous religious cult. So you find out that he didn't die in the first movie. He just ended up in a coma. He comes back, he has a son of his own now. They don't explain how he had a son when he was just a kid, but whatever. And there's a character who comes back to this town, and this town where all these murders happened in the first movie, and she's looking for her mother. And the mother's played by Nancy Allen, and her character is very one-dimensional. You have her just walking through this abandoned sort of hospital, trying to find her mother. You have Stacy Keach is in this movie. He's probably one of the better things in the movie. He does what he can with the lines he's given. Everyone else, forgettable. And this movie almost made me puke. The way it's shot. Something about the way this movie was shot. It looks like they took caca water and they threw it up on the camera lens, because everything looks green and blackish and gray. It's just really weird, and everything's super focused. super in focus. It's just a very, very weird way of shooting a movie. Also only 82 minutes, and it felt like 3 hours. I had to pause this movie several times because it was really hard to get through. Yeah, there's a lot of gore in this movie, not as much as the other three that I mentioned. But you would think that after all these murders, someone would do something about the town, Gatlin. But I guess people still live in this town. It's kind of like Friday the 13th. Like no one does anything about Camp Crystal Lake, but people still come back. The acting's okay. That's the best thing I can say about the movie, but it's really bad. I don't recommend it. If you have it in your box set, go ahead and check it out. But there's nothing good about this movie. Number 6 is Children of the Corn: Revelation. This is also, I guess, a sequel in a sense to the other movies, but it doesn't really connect. It kind of stands on its own, and it has the same plot, sort of, as Children of the Corn 666. It's literally just a woman who comes looking for her mother, and instead of being back in Gatlin, it's in the city, and she's living in this abandoned building. She's staying in the building, and you have these 2 weird kids, which are probably ghosts from kids from the other movies. And weird shit starts to happen. There's some people that live there, and they start getting killed. There's not much of a plot. There are some interesting kills, and that's the only reason I have this higher up on my list. But it's really interchangeable between this movie and the other one. At least this one didn't make me puke. The cinematography is alright for a movie that came out, in the early 2000s. It's, again, pretty bad. Not much I can say about this movie. Number 5 is Children of the Corn 5: Fields of Terror. This movie was okay. It was acceptable, but it was starting to show that, hey, this franchise is overstaying its welcome. This movie is funny because it has an actress that you may know, and that is Eva Mendes. She plays one of the characters in this movie, and it involves a group of kids whose car breaks down. Now they have to find a tow truck, and they can't find a tow truck, so one of the characters just so happens to have someone who lives in town. It's always someone who lives in the town. They're trying to find them. In the meantime, everyone else is getting killed. And that's pretty much what happens. The movie only runs at 83 minutes. It felt like 2 hours. At least it didn't feel like 3, but it felt like 2. There's a lot of bad acting from some of the kids. You can tell they probably did only one take. I said, hey, that's good. We'll go with that. Had fun with the movie. Not terrible. Again, it's just okay. It's good to just watch, while you're doing something else. Number 4 is Children of the Corn 4: The Gathering. This one I actually quite liked. This one was easier to get through, and it was 85 minutes, and it felt 85 minutes. This movie has Naomi Watts in one of her early roles, and she plays someone who comes back to this town, and I believe it's not Gatlin, but it's a town that's close to Gatlin. Do something a little bit different, which I appreciate. Apparently the kids are getting sick, and they're getting sick with this virus that's turning them into the ghosts of the kids from Children of the Corn. They don't explain fully how that happens. It sounds very silly, but at least they tried something different. It's not the same old story. Naomi Watts does a pretty good job in this movie. She is actually what holds this movie together. She's the glue to this movie. She acts better than what this movie is. There's a lot of gory kills, and there's actually flashbacks and callbacks to the other movies, which I appreciated, which you don't see in any of the subsequent sequels. And again, gory kills. A lot of gory kills. Quite enjoyed that, and again, it only felt like 85 minutes, so that's a plus. Number 3 is Children of the Corn 2: The Final Sacrifice. I hate when they say final in movies, because we all know that's not true. Final chapter, the final this, the final that. They're gonna make another one. It's happened with Saw, it's happened with Friday the 13th, so many different movies, so did a great job. Again, 94 minutes, and this one actually felt shorter. This one went through really quick. It went through the kills right off. And the child actor that they chose was actually a teenager. He does a pretty good job with his lines. It's not like some of the actors in the other movies. You actually believe him, and he looks really creepy. He does a pretty good job with the character. And this time around, it takes place right after the first movie. The kids are being transported from Gatlin all the way to this other town, and they're being left with other people to be raised. without questioning anything. And there was one old lady who was like, "Don't take these kids. These kids are evil. They're gonna kill everybody." And of course, no one takes the warning. You know, she's kind of like, I forget his name. He's a character in Friday the 13th who says, "You're all doomed, doomed, I tell you." So, and of course, her character gets killed off. Pretty gruesome. The way they killed her off was a little too much. But I had fun with it. There's also one scene in part 2 that makes me laugh, and it's messed up. It's a scene involving an older lady. It's a relative or a friend of the woman who gave a warning, and she's in a wheelchair. I don't know if they used a dummy or not, but it makes me laugh. It's messed up, I know.
Thank you,
But pretty gory kills, simplistic. There's also a love story in here for some reason. You know, this kid is staying with his dad who works for a tabloid paper, and he's doing a paper on these kids and what happened in that town. He falls for one of the girls who lives in the town, but she's not part of the cult. It feels super 90s. They also give an explanation as to what these kids are praying to, and you see it through a character who's played by a Native American, and I thought that aspect of the movie was very interesting, especially for a movie of that time. So I recommend it. I definitely do. Number 2 is this one I actually really liked, and that's Children of the Corn 3: Urban Harvest. If I find this movie on Blu-ray, which I believe now it is available on Blu-ray, I'm gonna buy it. And I don't like double dipping, but some of these other movies are not very good, so I probably will only want to keep certain movies of this franchise in my collection. So part 3 is a sequel, but it doesn't really mention the other 2 movies as much. Kind of stands on its own, and it's a story about 2 kids who pray to He Who Walks Behind the Rose, and they move to the city. And one of them is really evil. He's really into this cult, and he's your new Isaac, and he starts, you know, bringing all these corn to the city, and there's some of the most ridiculous kills in this franchise. And you also have a cameo by Charlize Theron in one of her early roles. It's a really gruesome death. And there's some really bad miniature and stop motion, but it makes me laugh. At least I had fun with it. At least it was not boring. It was super enjoyable. There's some really cheesy jump scares that made me jump, but they also made me laugh. So when a movie does that, that tells you that the movie was alright. It wasn't as bad. So I definitely recommend Children of the Corn 3: Urban Harvest. But better than Children of the Corn 3: Urban Harvest is, of course, the original. And this one was alright. The whole story is this, couple, played by Linda Hamilton, and I forgot the name of this actor. I haven't seen him in anything else, as far as I know. I'm sorry. But they accidentally run over a kid, and they find out the kid had been killed, had been throat sliced, or they ran over him. So they're trying to get into town to find help. They find this cult of kids who pray to this demonic thing. And at first they don't believe that it's anything. They believe it's just something in their heads. It's He Who Walks Behind the Rose. The movie is very simplistic and straightforward. The 2 actors, and even the actor who plays Isaac, does a very good job. It holds up as a pretty neat, simplistic 80s horror movie. Definitely not a movie that needed so many sequels. If you wanted to just watch this movie and nothing else, I think that could have been just okay. But instead, they did so many of them. Quite honestly, if you find this for like $10, or even less, go for it. The picture quality on these movies, it varies. This one is one of the best Blu-rays I've ever seen. There's a particular shot where Linda Hamilton is walking out of her car, and she's going almost close to the fields of corn, and it looks like a brand new movie. It looks amazing. There's so many shots in this movie that makes you, think that, wow, like, film is so much better than digital. I think that's one reason why it looks so good. Whatever transfer they used for this movie, I commend them. They did a great job. With the sequels, it varies. Children of the Corn 2: The Final Sacrifice, the picture quality is pretty bad. What they did was they took probably a VHS and they blew it up. And you can tell that it's a VHS. that they are pretending to make it look high def, and it does not work. And these movies come, like, they're flippers. You can flip them, so you have part 2 on one side, and you have the other ones on the other side. The other ones, you have, like, 3 movies in one, on one disc, and you would think they would look pretty bad. They don't. Children of the Corn, 3 looks alright, 4, 5, 6, they all look decent. They don't look, amazing, but they look decent. I would love to get part 3 on Blu-ray, because that one was really enjoyable. This one, it is not because of the transfer, it's just the way it's shot. It looks like it was shot digitally, but they didn't do anything with the footage. If you shoot digital and you don't, add any color grading, it's going to look very blah, and that's how this movie looks. And there's particular scenes that are just very dark and not well lit. So that has something to do with the transfer. This one, for a terrible movie, the cinematography was okay. Same thing with this one, but more so this one than this one. If you want to be a completist, get them all. But I only recommend buying the first one, the second, and the third one. Unfortunately, I do not think that the second one is available anymore on DVD. And it was never released on Blu-ray as far as I know. But you never know. Maybe they'll release it someday. So just 1, 2, and 3 I recommend buying. The other ones, like, I did enjoy 4 or 5. But maybe just watch. I'm pretty sure you can watch them on Tubi or somewhere else. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. So this is the first segment, the first video of this segment. And let's see how it does. If people enjoy it, I'll definitely continue doing this every Friday. So the channel, I had mentioned in another video, the video that I did for Bob Saget, that I plan to return to this channel starting more than likely in March. I'll make an announcement. And it's going to be on Mondays at 8 a.m. and Fridays at 8 p.m. On Mondays, is going to be videos talking about what I like. Stuff that, as far as I know, no other YouTubers talking about, stuff about movies. I don't want to follow trends that other people are doing, so I won't do that. On Fridays is going to be rankings, this segment of ranking different movies. It could be a horror franchise, it could be a director, it could be an actor. Let's say, for example, ranking all of Matt Damon's movies from worst to best. I would have to watch all those movies, but that will be a video every Friday. So anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be seeing you guys hopefully in March. We'll see how this video does. If it does really well, I will be coming back sometime in March. Hope you guys are doing well. Stay safe, and I'll be seeing you very soon.